The lawyer's words echoed in the silent room like a gunshot. The entire estate goes to Charlotte Hayes. My mother's face went white. My sister Emma dropped her champagne glass, the crystal shattering against marble, and I sat frozen, staring at a sealed envelope with my name written in my father's distinctive handwriting. Inside that envelope was a truth that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. I'm Charlotte, 23, and for my entire life, I've been the unwanted daughter. Not abused, not neglected in obvious ways, just consistently, quietly overlooked in favor of my sister Emma. She's 2 years older, devastatingly beautiful, charismatic in that effortless way that makes people orbit around her. I was the plain one, the bookish one, the daughter my mother introduced with a slight hesitation, as if she were apologizing for my existence. Growing up in the Hayes household meant living in Emma's shadow. Our father, Richard Hayes, built a commercial real estate empire from nothing, self-made, brilliant, ruthless in business, but surprisingly gentle at home. Or at least, gentle with Emma. She could do no wrong. When she crashed her first car at 16, he bought her a better one. When she dropped out of college after 1 semester, he said she was finding herself. When she blew through her trust fund by 23, he quietly replenished it. I learned early not to expect the same treatment. When I wanted piano lessons, my mother said they were too expensive while Emma was taking private riding lessons at an exclusive equestrian center. When I got accepted to Northwestern with a partial scholarship, my father said I should consider community college first to save money. Emma's college fund had been unlimited. I worked 3 jobs through college. Graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance. Got hired at a boutique investment firm in Chicago. Built a life for myself, completely independent of family money, because I'd learned that family money wasn't for me. It was for Emma. It had always been for Emma. The weird part? I didn't even resent her. Emma was sweet to me, in her careless way. She'd let me borrow her clothes in high school, invite me to parties where I'd stand awkwardly in corners while she sparkled. She'd call me sometimes, rambling about her life, barely asking about mine. It wasn't malicious. She just existed in a world where she was the sun and everyone else provided warmth by proximity. My mother, Eleanor, was different. She actively disliked me. The way she'd compare us constantly. The way she'd edit me out of family photos, literally cropping me from pictures before posting them. The way she'd forget my birthday but throw elaborate parties for Emma's. I stopped going home for holidays around 21. Made excuses: work, travel, friends. The truth was simpler. It hurt less to be absent than to be present and invisible. My father's death was sudden. Heart attack at 62, no warning. I got the call from my mother, her voice strangely flat, telling me the funeral was Saturday and she assumed I'd come. Not that she needed me there, just the assumption of obligation. I flew home to Greenwich, Connecticut, to the sprawling estate I'd grown up in. Emma was there, genuinely devastated, her eyes red from crying. My mother was composed, dressed in elegant black, receiving condolences like a queen accepting tributes. The funeral was enormous. Business associates, politicians, society figures. I stood beside my mother and sister, shaking hands, accepting condolences from people who seemed surprised to learn Richard Hayes had 2 daughters. My mother's jaw would tighten each time. Emma would laugh uncomfortably. I would smile and say nothing. The will reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday. My mother was confident, almost excited. Emma was certain the money would primarily be hers. Daddy's girl, the favorite, the one he'd spoiled her entire life. I expected nothing. I'd made peace with it years ago. I had my own career, my own savings, my own life. I was there out of obligation, nothing more. We gathered in the library, my mother, Emma, myself, and Robert Chen, my father's attorney for 30 years. Robert looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers, avoiding eye contact. He started with my mother, the Greenwich property and a lifetime annual allowance of $200,000. My mother's face flickered with surprise. The estate was worth far more than that. Then Emma, a one-time payment of $500,000 and the vacation property in Nantucket. Emma gasped softly. $500,000 was significant, but the empire was worth nearly $50 million. And then Robert looked at me. The remainder of the estate, all business holdings, investment portfolios, the art collection, everything went entirely to me. The room exploded. My mother shot to her feet. Emma's mouth fell open. I sat frozen, unable to process the words. My mother's voice was sharp, insistent. There had to be a mistake. Richard would never do this. But Robert was firm. There was no mistake. And there was more, a sealed letter for me, to be read privately before I made any decisions about the estate. He slid the envelope across the desk. My name in my father's handwriting, slightly shaky. My mother demanded to know what was in it. Emma said they deserved to see it too, but I stood up, the envelope in my trembling hands, and told them I'd read it alone. My mother started to protest, but I just walked out. Down the hallway lined with family portraits, so many of Emma, so few of me, and into my father's study. The room still smelled like his cologne, leather and cedar. I sat in his chair, staring at the envelope for what felt like hours, because once I opened it, something would change. I could feel it. Finally, I broke the seal and started reading. My father's letter began with an apology. He said he was sorry he'd been a coward my entire life. Sorry for all the things he should have told me in person, but never did. And then he told me the truth that would shatter everything. I was his only biological daughter. Emma wasn't his child. She never was. 25 years ago, my mother had an affair with a man named David Preston. She got pregnant and told my father it was his. They'd been trying for a baby, so the timing seemed right. He believed her. He loved her. He wanted to believe her. Emma was born, and he adored her, poured everything into being her father. And then I came along 2 years later, a surprise. From the moment I was born, he knew I was his. I had his eyes, his expressions, his stubborn temperament. I was undeniably his daughter, but something felt wrong. The way my mother acted around me compared to Emma. The way she favored Emma so intensely, so desperately. The way she seemed almost resentful of my existence. 2 years ago, my father finally did what he should have done decades earlier. He took a DNA test, his and Emma's. She wasn't his daughter, and my mother had known all along. He confronted her with the results. At first, she denied everything. Then she admitted it. The affair, the deception, 23 years of lies. She begged him not to tell Emma, not to destroy her world. She said Emma was innocent, that she didn't deserve to lose her father. And he agreed to keep the secret. Because Emma was innocent, she believed he was her father. She loved him as her father. How could he destroy that? But he couldn't keep pretending everything was equal. He couldn't keep giving away what should have been mine to the daughter of the man who betrayed him. So he changed his will. He made sure that when he died, I would finally receive what I'd been denied. Not just money, but recognition. Proof that I mattered. That I was his daughter. His true daughter. His only daughter. He wrote that every moment he'd failed to show me love. Every time he'd seemed distant, it wasn't because I wasn't enough. It was because he was a coward who couldn't face what my mother had done. He couldn't look at me without seeing his own weakness. His own willingness to be deceived. The letter ended with him saying he was proud of who I'd become. That I'd built a life without him. Without his money. Without the family's support. That I was stronger than he ever was. He said he loved me, that he should have said it more, shown it better, that he was sorry he ran out of time. I sat there in his chair, the letter trembling in my hands, unable to process what I'd just read. Emma wasn't my sister, not fully. We shared a mother, but not a father. My mother had lied for 25 years. Every moment of favoritism, every comparison, every casual cruelty suddenly made horrifying sense. My mother hadn't just preferred Emma, she'd been protecting her secret. Every time she looked at me, she saw the evidence of her deception, the real daughter, the one who proved that Emma was someone else's child. And my father had known for 2 years, had struggled with the truth, had tried, in his broken way, to make it right. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, my phone buzzed, a text from Emma saying my mother was losing it, wanted to contest the will, asking me to please come back so we could talk. I picked up the letter, folded it carefully, and walked back to the library. My mother was pacing. Her composure finally cracked. Emma sat on the sofa, looking lost. I closed the door behind me and looked at my mother. I asked her if Emma knew. If Emma knew that Richard Hayes wasn't her biological father. The room went silent. Emma's head snapped up, her eyes wide, asking what I was talking about. My mother started toward me, telling me not to do this, but I interrupted her. I asked if she hadn't been doing exactly that for 25 years, not telling the truth. Emma stood slowly, confused, asking what I was talking about. I told her. I said Dad had a DNA test done 2 years ago, that she wasn't his biological daughter, that Mom had an affair, and passed her off as his child for her entire life. My mother immediately said it was a lie, but her voice wavered. I turned to Robert and asked if my father had discussed the DNA test results with him. Robert hesitated, then nodded. He said Richard had shown him the results, wanted to ensure the will was legally sound given the circumstances. Emma's legs seemed to give out. She sank back onto the sofa, her face ashen, saying it couldn't be true, that Dad had loved her. I told her he did love her. He loved her enough to keep the secret, to let her believe he was her father, to protect her from the truth. Emma's voice broke. She asked if he loved her. Why did he leave everything to me? I said it quietly. Because I'm his only real daughter. And he spent my entire life pretending I wasn't important because he was protecting her. Protecting the lie. My mother's voice was low and dangerous. She said if I pursued this, if I told people, I'd destroy the family. I'd destroy my sister. I corrected her. Half-sister. And I told her she destroyed this family 25 years ago when she lied about who Emma's father was. Emma asked suddenly who he was, who her real father was. My mother's jaw tightened. She didn't answer. I said his name was David Preston. That was all I knew from the letter. Emma pulled out her phone with shaking hands, already searching. My mother moved toward her, but Emma held up a hand, told her not to come near her. The silence stretched. Then Emma stopped scrolling, her face going even paler. She said he lived in Manhattan, that he had a family, a wife, 2 kids. I told her gently that, according to the letter, he didn't know about her. Mom had never told him. Emma looked at our mother with something like horror. She said my mother had let her spend her whole life not knowing who she really was. Let Richard give her everything, treat her like a princess, when Mom knew Emma wasn't his daughter. My mother said she did it to protect Emma, that she did it because she loved her. But I cut in. I said she did it to protect herself. She did it because she didn't want to lose the lifestyle, the money, the status of being Richard Hayes' wife. And she made sure Emma got everything so Emma would never question it, never look too closely at the truth. My mother's face twisted. She asked if I was going to keep all the money, if I was going to leave my sister with nothing. I said honestly that I hadn't decided yet. The truth was, I didn't know what I was going to do. The money felt tainted, heavy with secrets and lies. But it was also recognition proof that I'd mattered to my father. I told them I needed time. That we all did. I said I was going back to Chicago, that I'd be in touch about the estate details, and if Emma wanted to really talk, she could call me in a week. Then I walked out. Behind me, I heard Emma start to cry, heard my mother's voice rising. But I didn't look back. The next 3 months were surreal. I hired my own attorneys and a private investigator. I needed to understand everything, the full scope of my father's empire, and the truth about David Preston. The investigator's report was thorough. David Preston was 58, a successful architect, married for 30 years to a woman named Carol. They had 2 children, both younger than Emma. He had no idea Eleanor Hayes had gotten pregnant with his child during their brief affair decades ago. I sat with that information for weeks, wrestling with an impossible question. Did Emma have the right to know her biological father? Did David Preston have the right to know he had another daughter? I didn't make that decision alone. I called Emma. We met at a quiet restaurant in Manhattan. She looked thin, exhausted, older than 25. The sparkle that had always defined her was gone. When we sat down, I told her I'd found him, her biological father. I'd had him investigated. Her hands trembled as she asked what I'd found. I told her he had a family, that he didn't know about her, that he seemed like a decent person. She asked if I was going to tell him. I said I wasn't going to do anything, that this was her choice. She was the one who had to live with whatever decision she made. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said she didn't know if she could handle another father not wanting her. I reached across the table and took her hand. I told her Richard Hayes loved her. He knew she wasn't biologically his, and he loved her anyway. He protected her from the truth because he couldn't bear to hurt her. That wasn't a man who didn't want her. She started crying silently. She asked why he left everything to me then. I said gently that it was because I'm his daughter, and for my entire life, he pretended I wasn't important. This was his way of finally admitting the truth. It wasn't about punishing her. It was about acknowledging me. Emma whispered that she was sorry. Sorry she got everything. Sorry Mom favored her. Sorry she never noticed how badly I was treated. I told her she was a kid. That she didn't create this situation. Mom did. We sat together for hours that night, really talking for the first time in our lives. I made my decisions slowly, carefully. First, I set up a trust for Emma. $5 million, managed by independent trustees, distributed over 20 years. Not the full inheritance, but enough to ensure she'd be financially secure. Enough to prove I didn't hate her. Second, I took control of my father's business empire. I was good at finance, better than anyone expected. Within 6 months, I'd restructured 3 failing divisions and increased overall profits by 18%. Third, I cut my mother off almost entirely. She received the allowance my father's will stipulated $200,000 a year, but no access to me, no family dinners, no pretense of a relationship. And fourth, I helped Emma find her biological father. We did it through a counselor who specialized in family reunification. David Preston was shocked, then devastated, then curious. DNA tests confirmed what we already knew. He met Emma slowly, carefully, with his wife's knowledge. It wasn't perfect. It was complicated and messy. But it was real. My mother tried to contest the will. She hired expensive lawyers, claimed my father was mentally incompetent, suggested I'd manipulated him, but the evidence was overwhelming. She lost. She lost the case, and she lost both her daughters. 2 years after my father's death, I stood in the office that had been his, now mine, looking out over Manhattan. Hayes Properties had expanded into 3 new markets. I'd been featured in Forbes as a surprising success story. But the real success wasn't the money. It was the relationship I'd slowly built with Emma. We weren't like typical sisters, too much damage, too much history. But we were honest. We were real. She'd decided to keep a relationship with David Preston, cautiously. He'd welcomed her, tried to make up for lost time. His kids were welcoming and kind. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was something. My mother moved to Florida, living off her allowance. She sent birthday cards sometimes, empty gestures I didn't respond to. Maybe someday I'd forgive her, maybe not. Either way, I was done letting her define my worth. My father's letter stayed in my desk drawer, creased from rereading. Some days I was angry at him for waiting so long. Some days I understood he'd done the best he could. Most days I just missed him. But he'd given me something in the end. Not just money or property. He'd given me proof that I mattered. That I'd always mattered. That being overlooked didn't mean being worthless. If you've ever been the forgotten child, the one who built themselves from nothing while others received everything, you're not alone. If you've discovered that your family's love was conditional, dependent on lies and secrets, you're not alone. The truth is expensive. It costs relationships and comfort and the easy fiction that everything was fine. But the truth is also freedom. The freedom to know who you are, not who you were told to be. I didn't destroy my family by accepting my inheritance. My mother destroyed it 25 years ago when she chose deception over honesty. I just finally saw it for what it was. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can only decide what to do with it. I chose to use it to build something better.